Hello friends, this is Miss Tara with another edition of Bedtime Stories. Our new book that we are beginning today is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. This is Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is entitled The Riverbank. The mole had been working very hard all the morning, spring cleaning his little home. First with brooms, then with dusters, then on ladders and steps and chairs, with a brush and a pail of whitewash, till he had dust in his throat and eyes, and splashes of whitewash all over his black fur, and an aching back and weary arms. Spring was moving in the air and in the earth below, all around him, penetrating even his dark and lowly little house, with its spirit and divine discontent and longing. It was a small wonder, then, that he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor and said, "Bother!" and "Oh, blow!" and also "Hang spring cleaning!" and bolted out of the house without even waiting to put on his coat. Something up above was calling him imperiously, and made for the steep little tunnel which answered in his case to the gravel carriage drive owned by the animals, whose residences are nearer to the sun and air. So he scraped and scratched and scrabbled and scrooged, and then he scrooged again, and scrabbled and scratched and scraped, working busily with his little paws and muttering to himself, up we go, till at last, pop! His snout came out into the sunlight, and he found himself rolling in the warm grass of the great meadow. "This is fine," he said to himself. "This is better than whitewashing." The sunshine stuck hot on his fur, soft breezes caressed his heated brow, and after a seclusion of the cellarage he had lived on in so long, the carol of happy birds fell on his dulled ears almost like a shout, jumping on all four of his legs at once in joy of living and the delight of spring without its cleaning, and pursued his way across the meadow till he reached the hedge on the further side. "Hold up," said an elderly rabbit at the gap. "Sixpence for the privilege of passing by the private road." He bowled over in an instant by the impatient and contemptuous mole, who trotted along the side of the hedge, chaffing the other rabbits as they peeped hurriedly from their holes to see what the row was about. Onion sauce, he remarked jeeringly, and was gone before they could think of a thoroughly satisfactory reply. Then they all started grumbling at each other. "How stupid are you? Why didn't you tell him?" "Well, why didn't you say?" "You might have reminded him," and so on in the usual way. But of course it was then much too late, as it is always the case. It all seemed too good to be true. Hither and thither through the meadows he rambled busily along the hedgerows, across the copses, finding everywhere birds building, flowers budding, leaves thrusting, and everything happy and progressive and occupied. And instead of having an uneasy conscience pricking him and whispering, "Whitewash!" he somehow could only feel how jolly it was to be the only idle dog among all the busy citizens. After all, the best part of a holiday is perhaps not so much to be resting yourself as to see all the other fellows busy working. He thought his happiness was complete when, as he meandered aimlessly along, suddenly he stood by the edge of a full-fed river. Never in his life had he seen a river before. The sleek, sinuous, full-bodied animal, chasing and chuckling, gripping things with gurgling and leaving them to laugh, to fling itself on fresh playmates that shook themselves free and were caught and held again. All was a shake and a shiver, glints and gleams and sparkles, rustle and swirl, chatter and bubble. The mole was bewitched, entranced, and fascinated. By the side of the river he trotted as one trots, when very small, by the side of a man who holds one spellbound by exciting stories. When tired at last, he sat on the bank while the river still chatted on to him, a babbling procession of the best stories in the world, sent from the heart of the earth to be told at last to the satiable sea. As he sat on the grass and looked across the river, a dark hole in the bank opposite, just above the water's edge, caught his eye, and dreamily he fell to considering what a nice snug dwelling place it would make for an animal, with few wants and fond of a bijou riverside residence, above flood level and remote from noise and dust. As he gazed, something bright and small seemed to twinkle down in the heart of it, vanished, then twinkled once more like a tiny star. But it could hardly be a star in such an unlikely situation. And it was too glittering and small for a glowworm. Then, as he looked, it winked at him, and so declared itself to be an eye, and a small face began gradually to grow up round it, like a frame round a picture. A brown little face with whiskers, a grave round face with the same twinkle in its eye that had first attracted his notice. Small, neat ears, and thick, silky hair. It was the water rat. Then the two animals stood and regarded each other cautiously. "Hello, Mole," said the water rat. "Hello, Rat," said the Mole. "Would you like to come over?" inquired the rat presently. "Oh, it's all very well to talk," said the Mole rather pettishly. So he being new to a river and riverside life, and it always. The rat said nothing, but stopped and unfastened a rope and hauled on it. Then lightly stepped into a little boat, which the Mole had not observed. It was painted blue on the outside with white within, and it was just the size for two animals, and the Mole's whole heart went out at once, even though he did not fully yet understand its use. The rat scullied smartly across and made fast. Then he held up his forepaw, and as the Mole stepped gingerly down, "Lean on that," he said. "Now then, step lively." And the Mole, to his surprise and rapture, found himself actually seated in the stern of a real boat. "This has been a wonderful day," said he, as the rat shoved off and took to the sculls again. "Do you know I've never been in a boat before in all my life?" "What?" cried the rat, open-mouthed. "Never been in a— You never? Well, what have you been doing then?" "It is so nice as all that?" asked the Mole shyly, though he was quite prepared to believe it as he leant back in his seat and surveyed the cushions, the oars, the rowlocks, and all the fascinating fittings that felt the boat sway slightly underneath him. "Nice? It's the only thing," said the water rat solemnly as he leant forward for his stroke. "Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing half as much worth doing as simply messing about in boats. Simply messing," he went on dreamily. "Messing about in boats. Messing— Look ahead, Rat!" cried the Mole suddenly. And it was too late. The boat struck the bank full tilt. The dreamer, the joyous oarsman, lay on his back at the bottom of the boat with his heels in the air. "About in boats or with boats," the rat went on composedly, picking himself up with a pleasant laugh. "In 'em or out of 'em, it doesn't matter. Nothing seems to really matter, that's the charm of it. Whether you get away or whether you don't, whether you arrive at your destination or whether you reach somewhere else, or whether you never get anywhere at all, you're always busy. You never do anything in particular. And when you've done it, there's always something else to do. And you can do it if you'd like, but you'd much better not. Look here. If you've really nothing else on hand this morning, supposing we drop down the river together and have a long day of it?" The Mole wagged his toes from sheer happiness and spread his chest with a full contentment and leaned back blissfully into the soft cushions. "What a day I'm having," he said. "Let us start at once." "Hold hard a minute, then," said the rat. He looped the painter through the ring in his landing stage, climbed up into his hole above, and after a short interval reappeared staggering under a fat wicker luncheon basket. "Shove that under your feet," he observed to the Mole as he passed it down the boat. Then he untied the painter and took to the sculls again. "What's inside it?" asked the Mole, wriggling with curiosity. "There's cold chicken inside it," said the rat briefly. "Cold tongue, cold ham, cold beef, pickled gherkin salad, French rolls, cress sandwiches, spotted meat, ginger beer, lemon, soda water." "Oh, stop, stop," cried the Mole in ecstasies. "This is too much." "Do you really think so?" inquired the rat seriously. "It's only what I always take on these little excursions, and the other animals are always telling me that I'm a mean beast and cut it very fine." The mole had never heard a word he was saying, absorbed in the new life he was entering upon, intoxicated with the sparkle, the ripple, the scents, the sounds, and the sunlight. He trailed a paw in the water, dreamed long waking dreams. The water rat, like good little fellow he was, sculled steadily on and forbore to disturb him. "I like your clothes awfully, old chap," he remarked after a half hour or so had passed. "I'm going back to get black velvet smoking suit myself some day, as soon as I can afford it." "I beg your pardon," said the mole, pulling himself together with an effort. "You must think me very rude, but this is all so new to me. So this is a river." "The river," corrected the rat. "Are you really live by the river? What a jolly life!" "By it, and with it, and on it, and in it," said the rat. "It's brother and sister to me, and aunts and company, and food and drink, and naturally washing. It's my world, and I don't want any other. What it hasn't got is not worth having, and what it doesn't know, it is not worth knowing. Oh, Lord, the times we've had together. Whether in winter or summer, spring or autumn, it's always got fun and excitements. When the floods are on in February and my cellars and basement are brimming with drink, that's no good to me. And the brown water runs my best bedroom window, or again when it all drops away. It shows patches of mud that smells like plum cake, and rushes and weed clog the channels, and I can potter about dry shod over most of the bed of it, and find fresh food to eat, and things careless people have dropped out of boats." "But isn't it a bit dull at times?" the mole ventured to ask. "Just you and the river, and no one else to pass a word with?" "No one else to? Well, I mustn't be hard on you," said the rat with forbearance. "You are new to it, and of course you don't know. The bank is so crowded nowadays that many people are moving away altogether. Oh no, it isn't what it used to be at all. Otters, kingfishers, dabchicks, moorhens, all of them, all day long, always wanting you to do something. And if a fellow had no business of his own to attend to—" "What lies over there?" asked the mole, waving a paw toward the background of a woodland that darkly framed the water meadows on one side of the river. "That? Oh, that's just the wildwood," said the rat shortly. "We don't go there very much, we river bankers." Aren't they? Aren't they very nice people in there?" said the mole, a trifle nervously. "Well," replied the rat, "let me see. The squirrels are all right, and the rabbits. Some of them. But rabbits are a mixed lot. And then there's Badger, of course. He lives right in the heart of it. Wouldn't live anywhere else either if it paid him to do it. Dear old Badger. Nobody interferes with him. They'd better not," he added significantly. "Why, who should interfere with him?" asked the mole. "Well, of course there are others," explained the rat in a hesitating sort of way. "Weasels and stoats and foxes and so on. They're all right in a way. I'm very good friends with them, past the time of day when we meet and all that. But they break out sometimes, there's no denying it. And then, well, you really can't trust them, and that's a fact." All right, this is the end of Wind in the Willows, Chapter 1, Part A. We will come back for the rest of Chapter 1 tomorrow. But until then, everyone have sweet dreams. Good night.